So one of the most common issues that people run into in Fortnite is their mentality. Maybe you're feeling like you get nervous and shaky in fights, maybe you're raging and tilting and get super mad at the game, or maybe you're just sitting there and you're not particularly motivated. Either way, mentality issues in Fortnite are one of the biggest things that hold people back from improving, and that's why in today's video I'm going to be giving you guys some of the best ways to improve your mentality in Fortnite. This video is going to be in 3 sections. It's going to go from confidence to raging/tilting to staying motivated. So whether you're dealing with one of these issues in particular or even 2 or all 3, this video should help you out a ton. Before we get into it though, be sure to drop a like on the video if it helps you out, subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want to see more, and of course it's always appreciated if you could use code Teckoh in the item shop. It's 100% free for you. It takes like 5 seconds to type in and it seriously does help me out a bunch. As always, a huge thank you to everyone who uses it. But with all that said guys, and without further ado, let's get into today's video. So the first issue a lot of people have in Fortnite is building confidence. When it comes to being able to get into a fight in a regular game or even a ranked game and spend the whole time thinking clearly and knowing what you're going to do next, that's a big issue for a lot of players. And that really just comes down to them not being confident and not being sure that they're able to win the fight. So the first thing you need to do in order to build confidence is to expose yourself to those difficult situations that you get nervous in. For example, this happens with a lot of people in ranked, for example. A lot of people get nervous in their fights, they start to panic, they lose the fight, and that just destroys their confidence. They end up playing super passive to just avoid those situations outright, but that's actually the opposite of what you want to do. If you find yourself in difficult situations and just getting super nervous in these situations, then what you want to do is you want to focus on exposing yourself to the situations you struggle in, since the more you actually get adjusted to them, the easier it's going to be in the future to avoid getting stressed out or nervous in those situations. It can definitely be a big leap, especially if you get nervous in fights a lot, but the fact of the matter is there's so much improvement that you can make simply by getting into those situations and not being afraid of them. Best case scenario, you win the fight. Worst case scenario, it's a learning opportunity. The next tip I have for you guys though, and this one is to really focus on making your opponent nervous. Now I want to tell you guys one of the most eye-opening realizations that I ever made in Fortnite, and this is when I realized that however nervous I might have been, my opponent was probably just as nervous, if not more nervous. Keep in mind that the issues you may be feeling with low confidence, getting nervous in fights, or anything like that, those are very common in Fortnite. Like probably 60-70% of the players you run into in a solo match, for example, are going to be absolutely shaken in their boots when they get into a fight. So when you have that in mind, you can actually take advantage of this. While you're fighting, instead of focusing on how scared or nervous you are, instead focus on making your opponent feel that way. Keep the pressure on them, go for shots they don't expect, and overall try to put them in the defensive situation where they start to scramble. Really, if you're able to keep the pressure on them and keep them nervous, it's going to take a lot of load off of you. And overall, this helped me stay super confident in fights and definitely made me more comfortable with keeping the pressure on my opponent. And these 2 factors combined made it so much easier for me to win fights. Moving on from that though, and getting into our final tip for building confidence, and this one is a very simple one, which is really just to consider what's on the line. When you're playing something like ranked mode, a public match, or even some tournaments, the fact of the matter is there's basically nothing on the line. Even if you die off spawn, you lose 10% on your rank and you can easily bounce right back. Our brains sometimes trick us into thinking that this stuff is much more real than it really is. Sometimes our fight or flight gets activated and we basically just go crazy even though it's just a Fortnite game, and we know realistically it's not actually going to do anything to us, but our brain kind of just tricks us into thinking it's a big deal. But really, you want to consider that if you lose, you're really not losing anything. And even beyond that, you could argue that the opportunity to learn from your mistakes and improve is even more valuable than the win you would have gotten. So recognize that you really don't have anything to lose. When you consider that there's really not anything to lose in most fights that you get in, it makes it so much easier to stay calm and collected and really focus on winning that fight. So keep that in mind whenever you're fighting in game. But with that said, that's going to wrap it up for our confidence section. And next up, I want to talk about one of the most common issues, which is raging and tilting. This is definitely one of the hardest to combat, but I think I can give you guys some good tips regardless. The first tip I want to give you to help you stop raging and tilting in Fortnite is that if you find yourself getting super angry or even tilting, which is slowly getting more angry over the span of multiple games, then you want to simply take a break. Just take some time to chill out, maybe walk around, or maybe even run a creative practice map so you can just decompress and relax for a few minutes and reset your mentality before you get back into it. Taking a break can range anywhere from a couple of minutes to even a couple of days if you want to just fully mentally reset. Really, a lot of people start getting angry or tilted and they kind of get into this mentality that the only way I'm going to stop doing this is if I get better, so I got to play the game a lot. But really, the best thing you can do for yourself if you run into this issue is to take a break. That way you can reset your mentality, relax a little bit, and be a lot better when you get back into it. Getting into our next tip though, and this next one is a super important one for raging and tilting, which is to have an outlet for your anger. The fact of the matter is that a lot of people just get angry and they have nothing to take it out on. They're basically just sitting there letting it boil and boil in their head until they just go crazy. One of the most important things you can do when you find yourself getting angry or tilted is to have some sort of way that you can let that energy out. People approach this in all sorts of different ways. Some people go to the gym, some people just get up and do some push-ups, push-ups. Some people even have one of those little stress ball things that they squeeze, or you can even come up with something else. But overall, having some sort of physical outlet for when you get frustrated is absolutely huge. That way that energy goes into something positive rather than just making you more and more angry. It seriously works super well. With that said, my last tip for raging and tilting is a super important one, which is to shift your mindset toward improvement rather than winning. This is something I've talked about many times on the channel in the past, and this is called the improvement mentality. The fact of the matter is that if you lost a game, you almost always did something wrong. Now, there is an argument to be made about if you just got randomly heavy sniped or something like that, but 95% of the time you did something wrong. And I think the mistake a lot of people make is looking at these situations in a negative light as if they're actually losing something. But the fact of the matter is that losing is arguably even better than winning. I know that's a bold thing to say, but hear me out. If you can actually figure out what went wrong, learn from it, and not make the same mistakes again, that's a huge win. Rather than making the same mistakes, winning the game, and not thinking you have anything to improve on, or not thinking you did anything wrong. So instead of getting hung up on your death and getting mad about it, instead think about what actually happened and how you can improve your gameplay to make sure it doesn't happen again. You can do this in a couple of ways. Some people do a full VOD review, which you can do, but it's not really necessary. You can even just reflect for a few seconds at the end of your game, figure out what you did wrong. But however you decide to approach it, shifting your mentality from the anger of losing toward the opportunity to improve is going to be super beneficial for you guys. But with that said, getting into our last section of today's video, and this one is going to be about staying motivated. Staying motivated in Fortnite is a less common issue, but it does happen to some people, especially when they have aspirations to go pro and whatnot. They put a lot of time into the game and they feel like they're starting to get burnt out or not enjoying it as much. But I do have 2 tips that I think are going to help you guys a lot if you're facing this. The first tip I have to stay motivated, and one of the most important things you can do, is set goals. I can't understate how important goals are because they actually allow you to have something to work toward at all times, and that makes it so much easier to grind the game and improve. These goals should be something specifically attainable. A couple of example goals might be, I want to reach diamond in rank this season, I want to place top 500 in a tournament this season, or I want to get my first earnings by the end of this year. Those are just some examples, but the fact that you have something specific to work toward can make it so much easier to grind through those difficult sessions and keep yourself on track mentally. So if you're kind of hopping on the game and you don't have anything specific to work toward, or you don't have any specific idea of what you want to do, then definitely set some specific goals about what you actually want to achieve with this game. That way, when you hop on in the morning, you know exactly what you want to do and why you want to do it. That makes it so much easier to grind out the game and become better at it. Moving on though, and our next tip for staying motivated, and the last tip for this video, is to consider the people that you surround yourself with in the game. If you're trying to improve but the people you play with don't care about improving, then that's going to rub off on you, and unfortunately you're going to be held back. I'm not saying to avoid playing with these people, but just keep in mind that the people you practice and grind the game with consistently should have a mentality similar to yours. You want it to be an energy where you bring one another up and help one another, rather than bring one another down and make one another mad. If the people you play with and the people around you in the game care about improving, have a positive mentality, and actually bring action to their words, meaning they do take the time to improve and get better, then this is going to rub off on you and help you become a much better player over time, and these players are going to help you stay motivated and keep yourself playing the game. So overall, don't underestimate the importance of the people you actually surround yourself with. But with that said, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on how to improve your mentality in Fortnite. Overall, that was 8 total tips in 3 categories, and hopefully if you're dealing with any of these issues we talked about, then these tips should help you out a ton. If you enjoyed this video, or if you found it helpful, then it would really mean a lot if you could drop a like on it. Consider subscribing as well if you're new to the channel and you want to see more. And lastly, guys, if you want to show some extra support, it's always appreciated if you could use code Teckoh in the item shop. It's 100% free for you. It takes like 5 seconds to type in, and it seriously does help me out a bunch. As always, a huge thank you to everyone who uses it. But with all that said, guys, thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.